Hello, so today I'm in the Stronghold to just explain a little bit about the DPS mechanics for the Arbiter Cleric. Now, as a cleric, we have three things to manage when we're doing damage, and hopefully you can see, I just go against the wall, you can see on the left hand side of my character there's a semicircular meter. That's my divinity meter, and on the right hand side is a meter that's got 6 circles. That's my judgment meter. So every time you cast a spell, every time you cast a spell that uses divinity, your divinity meter, the one on the left, will go down. And every time you cast a spell that uses judgment, you will use the judgment that you've accumulated in the meter on the right hand side. And to explain a little bit more about that, the various spells that we do, as well as causing damage in this case because we're on the Arbiter, also accumulates a form of judgment. So in the case of the at-will conflagrate, if you see there on the right hand side, it says added judgment is to increase radiant judgment by 3. So what that means is that meter on the right hand side will fill up, the first 3 circles will fill up with yellow, and that will be the radiant judgment that's built up on that meter. However, with the Lance of Faith, every time you cast this, the added effect is that it increases burning judgment by 1. So in that case, the meter on the right hand side will fill up 1 circle at a time each time you cast the lance, to a total of 6. So both types of judgment will fill that meter up to a maximum of 6. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to cast Lance of Faith. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can see I've got 6 orange balls going round my character, and the meter on the right has got 6 orange balls. If I then cast and you can see they've disappeared, your meter's only effective for a certain period of time. If I cast Conflagrate, I get 3, and now my meter's full of radiant judgment. Okay, so that's how you fill that meter. Then what you'll see with encounter powers is each one of them will either let me just go with the other at-wills first, sorry. So there's 2 other at-wills, it's just I don't use them: Scattering Light and Sacred Flame. Sacred Flame also increases radiant judgment, but by 1, and Scattering Light increases burning judgment by 1. These are my preferred. This is my main at-will, and this is an alternative at-will. So the encounter powers either do the same thing or use the judgment that you have stored up. So you can see that this Sunburst increases radiant judgment by 1, Daunting Light increases burning judgment by 1. So those 2 will help to fill your judgment meter. that's a healing spell, so it's not applicable. That's a healing spell, so it's not applicable. Gaze or Geese increases burning judgment by 1. Searing Javelin increases burning judgment by 1. Forge Master's Flame increases radiant judgment by 1. Chains of Blazing Light don't do anything with your judgment. Break the Spirit increases burning judgment by 1. And Prophecy of Doom doesn't do anything. Now, what's important to note is that when you cast Searing Javelin, although it increases the radiant judgment meter by 1, it actually uses anything you've stored in your burning judgment meter. And Break the Spirit increases burning judgment by 1, but uses anything you've stored up in your radiant meter. So basically the principle is, if it increases burning judgment when you cast it, it will use radiant judgment, and conversely, if it increases radiant judgment when you cast it, it will use burning judgment. So whatever it adds to, it will use the opposite, if I've explained that right. So I'll show you. So if we use that, increases, as you can see, it's increasing burning judgment, and then I release burning judgment, and I'll just do it to get the whole lot by doing that. And an added consequence of doing that is that sometimes it will totally fill the opposite meter, which I can then cast that to use. And I forget the names, so let me just check their names, because I'm bad at names. So normally what I do when I go into a fight is I will use Geese, and it will start to build my burning judgment meter. I will then use Lance of Faith until my meter's full, and I will then cast Searing Javelin, because that will use all the orbs in my burning judgment meter. I will hope that that will fill the radiant judgment meter, so that I can then cast Break the Spirit, and then hope that that will refill my burning judgment meter, so that I can then cast Searing Javelin again. If not, I'll go back to using Lance of Faith to refill my meter. So my go-to judgment is burning judgment. I only use radiant judgment for one spell, which is that one encounter spell, because it just takes longer to recharge for the cooldown. If I get to the point where that becomes available, but I don't have the meter full, because for whatever reason this didn't proc a full meter of radiant judgment, sorry, this didn't, hold on. Burning judgment, sorry. yeah, so I'll show you what I mean. So mostly I'm going to use Lance of Faith. Well, Geese, I'll do that first. Then generally I do that, and then I will use that and hopefully be able to use that. So we'll have a look. So I didn't do what I said I was going to do that, and then because it's better in a line them up, do that. It didn't fill my meter, so what I can do is do this to fill my meter, do that. That's filled my radiant, my burning meter, so I can do that, which has filled my meter again, but I don't have the encounter to use it. So what I can do is, and that adds it back into my divinity meter. So that's a way of recharging your divinity meter, is when your judgment meter is full, you can add your judgment to your divinity meter. So the Arbiter's actually got other ways of increasing their divinity rather than just praying. And the Searing Javelin is great if you can just line up the enemies. You can see it goes all the way down the line. Instead of it just aiming it at one, it will go all the way down the line and absolutely annihilate them. So I don't know if I actually explained that particularly well, but if you can see on the left hand side now, I've only got half my divinity. So if I want to recharge my divinity now, I've got a full meter on the right hand side. I just press R1 and that's gone and almost completely filled the divinity meter on the left hand side. So there are times when you cast these spells that they can totally fill your divinity meter, which you saw or has been seen on occasion when I'm doing this. When you cast a spell that uses one type of judgment, it has a chance to fill the meter of the opposite type of judgment with these encounter power spells anyway. Now, for that to happen, what you need to do is make sure you're not casting anything else, and make sure that as you cast your encounter, you keep your finger off your at will button, because as soon as you cast the encounter, if you're casting an at will, it will cancel out the meter that's full of the opposite judgment. If you're using the other judgment. Oh, it's really confusing. Right, so if I get my meter full of burning judgment, I think this is burning judgment. Let me just check what I'm doing, because I get them mixed up. Yeah, so the orange is burning judgment. Now for speed, you could just press your encounter power and keep your finger on your trigger so that you carry on using your at-wills after. But if you do that, because I'm casting an at-will that builds burning, but there is a chance that the encounter will fill the meter with radiant, casting the at-will will cancel out the radiant and start filling it up with burning. So just in case this procs a full meter of radiant, I need to take my finger off the at will, cast the encounter, it didn't, so I can go back to casting the at will again. Take finger off, cast. It's filled it. I haven't cancelled it by pressing the at will. I can cast the radiant encounter and then go back to trying to fill the burning meter again. It's filled it. My radiant encounter hasn't come back, so I'll put it onto my divinity meter, and that's basically the way I manage it. I tend to mainly use, there may be other ways, people might have a better way, let me know. I tend to use Burning Judgment by preference, just because this encounter comes back, if you see, it comes back a lot quicker than the one that uses the radiant. And of course you can cast, and I've now run out of divinity to cast it, but the recharge on Break the Spirit, I think that is more than Searing Javelin. So that cooldown is 19.3 seconds, whereas this cooldown is less than a second. So I can cast that more often than I can cast that. So my preference is to build Burning Judgment. And that's basically it. Any questions? Let me know. Thanks for watching.